The hour of 10:30 having come and gone, the Santa Cruz City Council will come to order and the clerk will call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Triguero.
Present.
Bruner.
Present.
Newsom.
Present.
Holder. O'Hara.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson.
Present.
And Mayor Keeley.
Present. The quorum having been established, we will move forward. Let me say under mayor comments real quickly, if anyone here is looking at or with us online who is interested in item 16 today, that will be continued for 2 weeks' time. Are there any statements of disqualification on the closed session? Seeing, hearing none. This would be the opportunity for members of the public who are either with us today in chambers or online who may wish to comment on our closed session agenda to do so. Is there anyone with us in chambers wishing to do so? Madam Clerk, do we have anyone online?
No, we don't.
We do not. All right. We will be going into our closed session to consider items 1 and 2 on our agenda, conference with legal counsel and public employee performance evaluation. What we will do is we will go into that closed session. We will return here about, we imagine, 11:15. If we take longer, it'll be longer. If it doesn't take that amount of time, we will still start at 11:15. At this time, we adjourn into closed session.
Recording stopped.
The hour of 11:15 having arrived and the City Council having completed its work in closed session, we are back in session and the clerk will call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Triguero.
Present.
Councilmember Bruner.
Present.
Newsom.
Present.
Holder. Here. O'Hara. Here. Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson. Present. Mayor Keeley.
Present. A quorum having been established, we're going to take things slightly out of order here. I'm going to move oral communication following item 3 so that we can move immediately to a mayoral proclamation declaring April 2025 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The Commission on the Prevention of Violence Against Women, I see that we have several members of the commission who are here. Ms. Maduro is here. We appreciate your presence. And I would ask Councilmember O'Hara to make a presentation in that regard.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to address the community as well as our commission members who are here. And I really appreciate each and every one of you for not only coming to today's meeting, but your long-standing contributions to violence prevention in our community. I served as staff role capacity for this commission for many, many years. And so as a council member, probably the mayor doesn't even know this, but when the mayor asked for me to do this presentation today, you know, I had an opportunity to reflect on the many years of work that not only I witnessed, but I know for the last 41 years, this commission has done such a tremendous job at bringing the important values and principles of our community in serving women in our community and focusing on women in our community. So I'm really pleased to have this opportunity. Thank you, Mayor. So for this month, we are focused on awareness around sexual assault. I have a few things to read from the proclamation, and I need to put my glasses back on. Here they are. But I also want to reflect on a few of them as I go through it. So, whereas sexual assault affects women, children, and men of all ages, race, and racial, cultural, and economic backgrounds. And in addition to the immediate physical and emotional costs, sexual assault may also have associated consequences of post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, depression, homelessness, eating disorders, abandoning educational opportunities, and suicide. We should think about that for a minute. This can be a catalyst to so many other co-occurring issues. And so having that prevention focus is so critical. Sexual assault can be devastating not only for the survivor, but also for the family and friends of the survivor. and a prevalence of sexual assault has an impact on communities, on the cohesiveness of our communities. So it's an incredibly important thing for us to be focused on and talking about. The City of Santa Cruz set ending sexual assault as one of its highest priorities in July of 1981 by establishing the CAPFAW, this commission. I think we were maybe the first in the country to establish such a commission. It has been a long-standing value of the city to have this focus on violence prevention with women. And this really serves as one of the bookends in addition to Domestic Violence Awareness Month on the work that you do. So we really appreciate that. No one person, organization, or agency or community can eliminate sexual assault on their own. We have to work together. And having a commission like we do at the City of Santa Cruz really does serve as that nucleus for how we work together. And everyone in our community has the right to be safe, and ending sexual violence requires the leadership of survivors and allies and the support of the public and collaborative law enforcement, justice systems, public health officials, et cetera, and community members. So together with the Commission for the Prevention of Violence Against Women, the Santa Cruz Police Department, and our community partners, we have led the way in addressing sexual assault in the City of Santa Cruz. And this month, we really want to open this conversation and make sure that each and every one of our community members knows that this is a value that we hold very focused attention on at the city. And so having this proclamation today, I think, really serves as the opportunity to bring that awareness out into the community. So I, therefore, Fred Keeley, Mayor of the City of Santa Cruz, and the rest of our colleagues on council here, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2025 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the City of Santa Cruz, and encourage all residents to learn more about how to end sexual assault, sexual harassment, and violence against women in the City of Santa Cruz through prevention programs and public policy. So thank you very much. We really, really tremendously appreciate it.
Good morning-ish, and we want to thank you all. And as the former chair for the last 2 years, I wanted to introduce to you our new chair, Karen Medora, and our vice chair, Anissa Novak. And I will let these two take
Welcome.
over and address you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the Commission for the Prevention of Violence Against Women, we are honored to accept this proclamation recognizing April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We extend our deep appreciation to Mayor Keeley and the Santa Cruz City Council for acknowledging the importance of raising awareness, supporting survivors, and working toward a future free of sexual violence. Sexual assault affects individuals, families, and communities, and it is through collective action that we can create meaningful change. This proclamation underscores the city's commitment to prevention, education, and survivor-centered support, aligning with our mission to empower our community and advocate for our culture of safety, respect, and accountability. We encourage all members of our community to join us in this effort, not just in April, but every day of the year. Together, we can foster an environment where all individuals feel safe and supported, and where violence has no place. We would also like to invite you all to attend our Denim Day in honor of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which will be held April 23rd from noon to 1 p.m. here in our courtyard. Thank you very much for your time and your dedication to this critical issue, and thank you to our amazing commission for all of the work that we do. Thank you for your support.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, thank you very, very much. Thank you. We will now proceed to oral communication. This would be the opportunity for anyone to speak on an item under our jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda for a period of time not to exceed 2 minutes. All good. All good. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
Maybe
Good
he-
morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
yes. You're welcome to go ahead, but I think I was in here before you. I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time.
I'll tell you what, I'm the presiding
So-
officer here, so
I'm gonna let
welcome.
him talk.
Well, you're not in charge of this. If you would like to speak, sir, please.
Good morning. My name is Michael Spatafor. I'm a business owner in Seabright. So the Murray Street Bridge is closing on Monday. Every business in Seabright is going to lose traffic from the east side for the next 3 years. We gave the contract to a company that's lost over $100 million in the past year, $59 million market cap. It's been sued for multiple delays over the past years. The bridge is going to be completely closed for 10 months. I'm not really sure. Last time the bridge was closed by the trestle, all the businesses in Seabright changed hands. So we're looking at the same thing happening again. This needs to be done as quickly and as concisely as possible. It can't be closed in one direction for 3 years. It can't be closed for 10 months in both directions. We're not going to have any 17,000 cars a day go down the Murray Street, and that's a count of from October 22nd or October 17th of 22. So I don't know what you guys are planning on doing, but I understand low bid and why it had to go to low bid, but I don't know if anybody Googled the lawsuits against this company from whether San Francisco, the Trans-Bay Authority, Honolulu, sexual assault cases, things like that. I know I reached out to the city manager prior, I reached out to the mayor prior, before you guys accepted this. When I first heard that the company was taking this, a simple Googling of this company would have found that they experience a lot of delays in their projects, and you cannot have delays on this project. It has to be done as quickly and as concisely as possible. My lease is almost up. I've been there for like 30 some years, but all these new people, they're going to lose their businesses. That's what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have anyone online? We do. We'll take the first person online, then we'll toggle back and forth between people who are here and people who are online. Person online, good morning, rather, and welcome.
And can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The revolutionary communist Vladimir Lenin's phrase, useful idiots, refers to people duped into thinking they're fighting for a valid cause without fully comprehending the consequences of their actions. It precisely applies to those cultural Marxists so busy hatefully trashing and demoralizing America. A great many are in Santa Cruz, and this body also gushes an awful lot of knee-jerk leftist orange man bad, so typical of the squealing cult with TDS do. Your priorities as regards opposing Trump and support for the left's ever more destabilizing and demoralizing plan priorities appear to me lacking a seriousness of understanding of the national and local predicament. Everyone should know this current leftist Marxist cultural revolution is, and everyone also does know a great many other things are, horribly and terminally wrong for America, and the end day is soon here if change doesn't restore normalcy, stability, and prosperity right now. Currency collapse, national bankruptcy, hyperinflation, threatened national security, worldwide chaos, civil disorder all follow a collapse of a too big to fail United States, which is our certain future on the path that we were on. Trump is so far the pivotal figure of the 21st century. That corrupt deep state, DC swamp, Lacy State media, indoctrinated useful idiots everywhere oppose him, but he is our last hope of coming out the other side of the abyss we face with a brighter, stable future. Instead of supporting his corrective, common sense, adult in the room efforts, do you really instead want to continue endless war, continue a demoralizing cultural civil war revolution over personal pronouns, murdering babies, removing children's private parts, denying biological gender reality, embracing defective socialism, viewing the world always through race, using discrimination of and mediocrity producing of DEI, or pretending you can control climate at any cost, or forever deepening the cesspool of government dependence, protecting criminal illegals, only worshiping power, and the coercive extracting or wastefully spending of an ever increasing more of other people's money.
Thank you, Mr. Ewing, good morning. Welcome.
Yeah. Hello, good morning. My name is James Ewing Whitman. I really like what Grant Garrett has to say. You know, I was in the supervisors meeting. I was like, hey, I can just go do my thing. Show up at 1:30. Oh, it starts at 11:15. I, too, have somewhat of a sense of humor. Biologists are predicting a decline in male pregnancies due to a political climate change. So I would have really enjoyed the people who were here talking about the violence against women. You know, if I was serious about 12 different ways to sue the city of Santa Cruz for at least $200 million, there's a 13th way, and it's not that. So I looked at my texts, and a friend of mine, Miss Rhonda Reyna, who has spoken here several times, and unfortunately, the worst example of peace officers that I have ever seen in a video happened on June 28th, 2021, involving 8 Santa Cruz police officers. Where's the remedy with that? So she got some remedy today. She spoke in the San Mateo. You know, they paid a female sheriff deputy $8 million to cover up some crap going on with the San Mateo County Sheriff's Department. And now we have there's a female sheriff in San Mateo County, and she's dealing with some stuff. So it's like, what can we all do? And I had asked the clerk if we could speak about the proclamations, because I would have loved to have spoken about that. Now I have to speak a little bit more concisely. I like to be challenged. It happens all the time. So here we are, another beautiful day. It sure was nice to spend some time at the beach today. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
With their hands up.
Anyone else with us wish to address? Mr. Cole, good afternoon. Excuse me, good morning, sir. Okay, let me make clear what happens here. You folks are not in charge about who speaks when, okay? I'm the presiding officer. If I call on Mr. Cole, it's not your alternative. You don't get to say who speaks, in what order. I called on you. If you want to speak, speak. If you don't, don't.
Thank you, Mayor Keeley. Greg Cole here. And this I want to show as the approved plan, which was reinforced by your resolution in 2016. I just want to show you that. But the state has come up with this. The state has come up with this more recent plan, and this plan has got 10 steps down to a 5-foot fence right here. It's not really what you would hope for in your resolution, which says very clearly that you would like to have access to the point. The states does not provide access to the point for 2 different reasons. However, consideration should be given to a resolution which has in fact got a 4.5% slope all the way down to the point and allows you in the future to put access out to the point as you have in your resolution. Now, I have simply given, I know I took too much time last time and I want to apologize for that. I apologize. I have printed 8 prints and I wish to give them to the clerk. And if you wish to read them at some time in the future, I appreciate it. It is including a resolution which I hope that the city may consider just to encourage the state to do it correctly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Oral communication. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. We are here for representing Salsa by the Sea. It's every Sunday dance community. We are at the wharf stage, and the community wrote some important letters they want to give to the city, and saying thank you. We are very grateful for you guys for all the work that you guys do, and we want to show our appreciation on these cards. I'm gonna let Katrina talk.
My name is Katrina Tattenham. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a business owner and a mom, and I live here, and I dance religiously every Sunday at Salsa by the Sea. It brings so much joy to the people in the community. You do so much good when you support Parks and Recreation as they support us. So we wanted to express our gratitude and your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion by allowing us access to the city in a public sphere, sharing our joy.
My name's Lauren Bogle, and I just recently started going to Salsa by the Sea, and it completely changed my life. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who support it and all of the work that you guys do, and these letters reflect that.
Well, we are very grateful for your presence here today. Thank you so much for the letters. If you give those to the city clerk, we'll pass those around the council. And again, thank you very much for being here. We hope to see you again. Thank you. Anyone else under oral communication? Seeing, hearing none, we are on presiding officer announcements. I have none. Statement of disqualifications. Let me ask members if anyone has a disqualification on either the consent or regular agenda that we should note. Seeing, hearing none, we will move to additions and deletions. Ms. Bush, additions and deletions on our agenda.
I did update the packet yesterday, but just to reiterate, item 13, the Measure E Oversight Committee is pulled from the agenda, and it will be placed on a future agenda when they're ready to go. And then also the
Item 16,
Okay.
which we will hear in 2 weeks' time by agreement with the water director and a conversation with myself and the city manager. We're going to continue that for 2 weeks' time. Other additions or deletions anyone have? All right. We'll move on. City Attorney report on closed session. Mr. Condati, good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Keeley, members of the City Council. The council met at 10:30 a.m. in the Courtyard Conference Room this morning to discuss two items in your closed session. Item one was a conference with legal counsel concerning existing litigation, matter currently pending in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California, entitled GVC St. George LLC versus the City of Santa Cruz. Item two was a public employee performance evaluation of the city attorney. There was no reportable action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are on the consent agenda. For those that might not be familiar with this, how it works is that items 5 through 16 inclusive will be voted on one motion. What I will do is start on my left with Councilmember Golder. We will move around and see if members wish to pull an item, comment on an item, or ask a question on an item. When we are finished with that, I will go out to you, and you can make comments on any and all of the consent agenda items. However, when you make your comments, you're going to have 3 minutes total on your comments on the consent agenda. So I'm very clear about this. It's not 3 minutes per item. It'll be 3 minutes total for any items you wish to comment on. Let me start with Councilmember Golder. No items on consent. Councilmember, Madam Vice Mayor, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
Just want to make a quick comment on item 7 and item 12.
Please, go ahead.
Just on item 7, just quickly want to thank staff and in particular Director Wise West for work in obtaining this grant for climate resiliency projects in our city. The 3 resiliency projects outlined in the agenda report are much needed in our community, especially in the face of more often severe weather brought about by climate change. So I'm very happy to support this item and want to thank staff for their great work on this. On item 12, just want to quickly say really happy to see this item on our agenda. It's great to hear that phase 2 of the rail trail will soon be completed, connecting together with phase 1 over 30,000 residents in our city from Natural Bridges to Pacific Avenue to an active transportation corridor that leads to schools, workplaces, beaches, shopping, and other activities. So really excited to see this on our agenda, and just want to thank our Public Works Department and particularly Director Nguyen for all their hard work on this project, and happy to support this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brunner on the consent agenda.
Comment on item
proceed.
8.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Item 8 is the 2025 legislative program, and I just wanted to call attention to the public safety and well-being portion of our legislative program, that there are many categories. There's a table of contents. If anybody has not read it, I really encourage everyone to read it. But I really appreciate the support requested around e-bikes and e-bike safety. We hear oftentimes from our community members, and we see a lot of dangerous situations around that. And so I sit on the Public Safety Committee with Councilmember O'Hara and Councilmember Golder, and we cover many topics in Public Safety Committee meeting, and this has come up in the past, so it seems minor, but I just wanted to call it out because it does cross so many community members, and I'm glad that it's part of that, as well as many other topics. So I just wanted to call out that legislative report.
Thank you. Councilmember Triguero on the consent agenda.
Thank you. I have a comment on number 9. I think it's more maybe perhaps in the future, I'd like to see the final cost of the project with the original bid, just for a little bit more transparency for myself. And then on number 12, I want to comment, that's the Rail Trail Segment 7. This is a crucial segment for our long-term connectivity. I'm so happy that, we're moving forward, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to ensure the completion in a timely way. Because, I view this as just really essential to that connectivity long-term for our community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. On the consent agenda, a couple of items. One, we've talked about item 16 being continued. I would like to say on item 8, I would like to thank our city staff. Our highest 2 priorities listed in our legislative priorities are pro-housing incentives and homelessness response. And we have 2 bills that the city is now sponsoring. One is being authored by Assemblymember Gail Pellerin on the homelessness response issue, and the other is being sponsored by Assemblymember Patrick Ahern from Cupertino, which is a statewide concept that our city is the initial sponsor of that, dealing with how cities who are doing everything right from the point of view of the state on having a certified housing element of the general plan, meeting their RENA requirements in the last cycle, getting a pro-housing designation from the Department of Housing and Community Development. Is there a way that if you're doing everything right that the state of California wants in this space, can a city get a little bit more flexibility when dealing with challenges that some of those developments propose to impact neighborhoods? And so we want to thank both Assemblymember Pellerin and Assemblymember Ahern for taking responsibility for introducing those 2 bills on our behalf. Let me now see if anyone wishes to comment on the consent agenda, items 6 through 16 inclusive. This would be your opportunity to do so. Good afternoon again, sir. Or good morning again, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely, it is still morning. On the consent agenda, 6, the minutes. I think, and from the minutes, also about the noise ordinance, which actually is coming up today. So can I talk twice, or should I eliminate that? They're on both last 2 weeks ago and today. Is that okay?
Sure.
Great. Kind of tried to explain some stuff to the County Board of Supervisors, which operates in a very different, fraudulent way to the people than this room does. At least you have the opportunity to speak a lot more here. Kind of read the beginning of the 2nd paragraph of our Declaration of Independence, and that was recorded. That was actually quite fun. I liked what I did. I was kind of nice. I will say that it is amazing to be a human being right now. There's some crazy things going on. 248 years ago, the last time Pluto was apparently in the same place was 1776. Seemed to be a magical time of just one of 9 that I would love to talk about. So in regards to maybe a heads up for now a 13th way to go, wow, you guys really need to learn what jurisprudence from actual citizens is. I found myself taking a walk on Saturday night because I had heard that both city police of Santa Cruz and county deputies were approaching individuals. And I don't know exactly the reasons, but they were arresting them for vagrancy. When I came back, said it was 1:42. There's no way I'd been walking for 4.5 hours, but the time had changed. So I was walking for 3.5 hours and expressing freedom and practicing that. So suppose by your ordinances, even the small devices that I have could clearly be heard with decent fidelity from at least 200 feet away. I have equipment that'll outdo that by a factor of 200 easily. So how much trouble can you get into practicing freedom? And I don't really expect most of the law enforcement to approach me if they know who I am, because we always have fun, affable conversations. Mostly. Not always true. So that issue is still kind of an interesting issue as far as the noise ordinance and the malfeasances against the people that are actually operating in rooms like this due to the elected officials being controlled by city and county managers. I'll continue.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else online
No one with their hand raised.
with their hand up? Anyone else wish to comment on oral communication? Mr. Farrow, good afternoon, good morning, sir, and welcome.
Good morning, Mayor Keeley and council members. I'm speaking today for Friends of the Rail and Trail, and we want to thank the Santa Cruz City Council and the city staff, especially Ricardo Valdez, Claire Galagli, and Nathan Nguyen for their perseverance and commitment to this vision of the rail trail and rail in our community. It takes leadership and commitment to follow through on this. And you have been there for us, and we thank you from the bottom of our heart.
Thank you, Mr. Farrow. Anyone else under oral communication, under comments on the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, matters back before the body.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second by Councilmember Golder. Debate or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Triguero.
Aye.
Bruner.
Aye.
Newsom.
Aye.
Golder.
Aye.
O'Hara.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson.
Aye.
And Mayor Keeley.
Aye. Motion carries and so ordered. Next up is consent public hearing. These are items 17 through 20. Similar kind of rules here. We will be taking these all up on one motion. This is the public hearing opportunity. I'm going to go around and ask if council members have questions, comments on this item. We will start with Councilmember Golder, Councilmember O'Hara.
Yeah, just one brief comment. As my colleagues are aware, I took great interest in item 17. Would just, don't want to pull other than having this comment, would just appeal to the council to consider returning at a future time to really look at our daytime noise ordinance considerations to ensure that we're being comprehensive and evidence-based. And then I would like to record a no vote on 17.
17. You will be so recorded. Thank you. Madam Vice Mayor. Mr. Newsom, Ms. Bruner, Ms. Triguero.
I'll make a brief comment. Like my colleague, Councilmember O'Hara, I wish to register a no vote on number 17.
So very good. Further on that? This would be the opportunity for members to comment on the consent agenda public hearing items. Public hearing is open on all of these items as one motion. Mr. Ewing, again, good morning, sir.
It's morning for another 10 minutes.
There we go.
How fabulous. Okay, I want to comment on number 17, the noise.
Certainly.
But first I'll comment on number 18, the energy standards. I spoke about that 2 weeks ago. It's daunting how handicapped and harmful these doctrines are by individuals who are pushing an agenda that is not for the people whatsoever with the energy standards. And then number 20, as far as the vendors, I don't know enough about that, so I'm not going to say anything about it, except I engaged with a lot of vendors on Saturday night, and it was fabulous. Some of the best food in town is very portable. Now, the noise ordinance, there's just so many issues that are not being discussed and spoken about. I had this assumption when I started speaking here almost 6 years ago, where this room had between 10 and 60 people buying time to make public comments, and then we had the people talking about the genocide going on in occupied Palestine. There were hundreds of people. I didn't make comments till after 2:30 in the morning. And I have a recording of a riot somewhat ensued in this room. It was pretty weird. I put my hands on a young man because the window had already been broken. And I got chastised by one of the young leaders. Get your hands off that guy. And I said, the police are ready for violence. You need to stop doing that. I don't know, there's a camera right there, camera right there. Law enforcement that I engaged with said they hadn't seen the film or anything. So I'm just wondering about all these stages of things going on. And, this, I could probably read from the Declaration of Independence. People really ought to be familiar with why that was written. It was written as a warning. I don't see a whole lot that's happened to support the concept of freedom for all individuals on the planet, because that's not what we have going on here now. And the noise thing is just one more area. But human beings can hear very little of the light spectrum. Some of it is sound, less than 5%. What brought me in here 6 years ago were, why are we allowing military frequency weapons in civilian locations? And that has just exploded. And it has everything to do with the sound ordinance, because it's going to be the streetlights that are going to be attempting to enforce it. The streetlights have already replaced law enforcement.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else online with their hand up? Anyone else wish to comment on consent public hearing items? Members, all comments been made? Everybody good? I will make one quick comment on item 20, which is the sidewalk vending ordinance administrative amendments. I think that sidewalk vending's per se a good idea. And I think it adds character and charm to communities that do it. I think it's a very good idea. A counterbalance to that, which is not to say we shouldn't have sidewalk vending, I think it's a good idea. But if you can pull up in a pickup truck and pull out your card table and your chair and compete with a brick and mortar business in our town that's also owned by a small business owner, and you have none of the overhead involved with that a small business owner has, and you compete with them, at an absolute minimum, you should have your business license, your sales tax license open and available and displayed. And I have said this, and I'm going to say it every year that this concept comes up. We need a way to make sure that the sidewalk vendors have their licenses and that they are remitting sales tax. To not do that is, frankly, in my view, to allow an illegal activity to take place to compete with the folks who do have their business license, who do remit their sales tax, who do pay into workers' comp, who do everything else. And to me, as we adopt amendments, enforcement is important. Again, not to say that you can't have a sidewalk vending business. You absolutely can have a sidewalk vending business. But we're not going to have a situation where some people have to obey the law and other people don't have to obey it at all. Clerk will call the roll.
Council members, oh, we don't have a motion yet, sorry.
Motion by Councilmember Golder, second by the Vice Mayor. Now the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Triguero?
Aye.
With the exception of item 17, right? Okay.
Thank you.
Bruder?
Aye.
Newsom?
Aye.
Boulder?
Aye.
O'Hara?
Aye, with 17 recorded no.
Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson?
Aye.
And Mayor Cooley?
Aye, motion passes and so ordered. Item 21 has been continued to the April 22nd meeting. We are on item 22. This is a development application at 313 Swift Street. We have staff presentations on this item and more than a little bit of backup material in our packet. Mr. Mayor, will you be presenting on this item?
Yes, I will. Thank you, sir.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor Keeley, members of the City Council. My name is Tim Mayer, Senior Planner with the city. This morning, the City Council is requested to consider and make a decision regarding approval of an educator workforce housing project proposed to be developed at 313 Swift Street. Project site is a roughly 4-acre lot located southwest of the intersection of Delaware Avenue and Swift Street, surrounded by industrial buildings to the north, Gateway School to the south, single-family residences to the east, and Sergeant Derby Park, as well as industrial uses directly to the west. As part of the project, the two existing buildings on site, shown kind of on the easterly side of the lot there, would be retained. An informal pedestrian pathway runs along the southerly portion of the lot as it's currently situated, leading from Swift Street on the east to Sergeant Derby Park to the west. And as proposed, the pedestrian pathway will be formalized and improved as part of the project. The proposed project is a 4-story, 120,604 square foot multifamily educator workforce housing project with 100 residential units, 119 parking spaces, new landscaping and site modifications, including removal of up to 6 heritage trees, which requires approval of a plan development permit, a coastal permit, design permit, and a heritage tree removal permit. A pre-application for the project pursuant to Senate Bill or SB 330 was submitted, and the project is therefore subject to and complies with the city's objective design standards for multifamily housing development. On February 6th of 2025, the project was reviewed by the Planning Commission and recommended for approval by the City Council with additions and modifications to project conditions of approval. Conditions of approval, among others, added by the Planning Commission on February 6th, require that pedestrian and bicycle access to the site be maintained long-term and during project construction. The project would offer 100 residential apartment units for rent by educators and support staff and their families. All residential units would be offered at the low or moderate income level through alternative compliance to the city's standard inclusionary housing requirement, an option allowed by the municipal code, while exceeding the requirements for affordability of the Teacher Housing Act of 2016, which has been invoked for the project. A public outreach meeting to discuss the project was hosted via Zoom on May 6th of 2024, and approximately 43 members of the community attended. Participants offered a diversity of feedback, which ranged from concern about loss of available on-street parking, to fears about worsened neighborhood traffic, to questions about supply of affordable housing and tenant selection criteria. Attendee feedback can be characterized as ranging from moderate concern to outright support. As I mentioned earlier, the California State Senate Bill, or SB 330, and the Teacher Housing Act of 2016 have both been invoked for the proposed project. For consistency with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, an initial study of environmental impact was prepared to disclose and mitigate potential environmental impacts generated, and a mitigation monitoring and reporting program, along with a mitigated negative declaration, have been prepared to address the potential environmental impacts associated with the project. Staff have made all necessary findings in support of the requested plan development permit, the design permit, coastal permit, and heritage tree removal permit, and staff have recommended the City Council acknowledge the environmental determination and approve the project with recommended conditions of approval. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions. Thank you very much. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much. Let me start with council member questions and comments of you, sir. Let me start here. Councilmember. Do you? Huh. Wonder where that could possibly come from. Councilmember O'Hara.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sure there will be robust conversation after we go through our comments, but I just wanted to express my deep appreciation for the applicants for moving forward with this project. I really tremendously believe that it's going to deeply affect our ability to retain teachers in our community. My three daughters came up through the Santa Cruz City School District. The conduit, that path from our teacher education program at UCSC to teacher training within our classrooms, to teachers that are lifelong career servants in our community through the school district. They're part of the fabric of our community. They are part of the service and important community members that truly are the lifeblood of our community. So I just want to express my appreciation. I know this has been a long process, and I'm just really looking forward to, having this as an opportunity for those that are in our community that want to stay in our community and provide this critical resource to our children to be able to do so with a little less stress and, a little bit more community support. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember. Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Agreed that I think this is going to be an excellent project for our community in all the ways that my colleague just named. I have probably the same questions. I'm going to let Councilmember Golder talk about some of the additional conditions that were put on by the Planning Commission. But I did have one other question that I don't know if Councilmember Golder does. There was a condition of planting at least 6 street trees. And I just wanted clarification. Is that in addition to the 2 tree, replacement of 2 trees per 1 heritage tree? Is that in addition to?
Correct, yeah, that was a condition of approval that was added just to ensure that the number of city street trees, so basically in the public right-of-way, that are actually planted are consistent with what's shown in the plan. So you're right, that's in addition to the 2 replacement trees for each heritage tree removed that are within the bounds of the private property.
And that was feasible for the applicants?
Correct, yeah, there was no concern raised about it.
Okay, thank you. I'll save my other questions.
Further questions on this item at the outset? All right. Let me go now to public comment. Let me see if there's anyone who's with us today, either in chambers or online, who wishes to provide testimony on this item. Ms. Ewing, again, this time, good afternoon.
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon. I was going to leave. I thought this was getting set up to talk for hours about whatever was going to be spoken about. Even at night, you can see what buildings look like. And there's a lot of new construction going on in Santa Cruz. I don't know the particulars of that building. I didn't look that closely, and at least it seems spread out. So good at being a killjoy, where to go. So I doing some work on the west side. I have been. The traffic conditions there are horrific. I find myself even making a left turn over there, disobeying the law that says one-way street, but maybe I shouldn't describe where there's some free parking in the area. Maybe I described it enough. So I was in that area actually yesterday, and there's quite a really large military weapon in that location. Not that this tiny military weapon isn't really powerful, because it is. I kind of made a joke, but I wasn't joking, about going into the building department before 8 and had a brick in the door because none of their electronic keys would get them into the room. So I can just assume that that building is built to standards like the other buildings. I don't know how many people have traveled the world, but there's a lot of beautiful architecture available, and what's being built in Santa Cruz is not as majestic and beautiful. But as far as the control grids and controlling people, People get advanced because they just follow orders and they're not really thinking what connects us as human beings and are these things really safe. They just make all these things. So in that area, it's just, maybe it's going to look different than some of the other ones, which really aren't that attractive when you walk around. I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I just read that they're calling the area in Front Street the Canyon. That's really interesting. It's much nicer than calling it a concentration camp, because you could certainly clinically and scientifically accurately describe these smart systems as prisons, digital prisons. Thank you. I was going to leave. I thought we were going to go on.
Madam Superintendent, welcome. Good to see you. How are you, Dr. Monroe?
I'm very well, Mayor Keeley. Thank
Good.
you so much for having us today, and thank you, council members and staff. My name is Chris Monroe, and it's been my privilege to serve as superintendent for Santa Cruz City Schools for the past 11 years. This is a pivotal moment in our district and the community we serve. The project before us will have a lasting impact on our ability to retain outstanding educators for decades to come. The high cost of housing in Santa Cruz remains one of the greatest barriers to recruiting and keeping the teachers and staff that our students deserve. In 2024, our city once again ranked as the most expensive place to live in the United States. Over the past decade, we've lost more than 100 teachers due to housing challenges, and 95% of declined job offers cite affordability as the primary reason. For the past 10 years, Santa Cruz City Schools has been working towards a solution, conducting feasibility studies, learning from school district housing projects across the state, and collaborating with financial and city leaders. Through this process, it became clear that the only viable path to providing below-market housing for educators was through a facilities bond. Santa Cruz voters responded with overwhelming support in 2022. Measures K&L, which explicitly funded educator housing and school improvements, passed with over 2/3 of the vote, exceeding all expectations. This project is a testament to the power of collaboration and our shared commitment to public education. We're deeply grateful to our board, district staff, families, and the broader Santa Cruz community for their leadership and dedication. A special thanks to our city partners, Bonnie Lipscomb, Lee Butler, and Tim Meyer, whose guidance has been instrumental in bringing this vision to life. We're proud to be partnering with local architect Ralph LaRue of Stacked Architects, Jared Bogart from Bogart Construction, and Bay Area architects EHDD and Studio Varo to turn this vision into a reality. And today we ask the City Council to help us take the next step in ensuring that Santa Cruz City Schools can continue to recruit and retain outstanding teachers and support staff so that we can provide the highest quality education for the children and youth of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Good afternoon, Mr. Kelly. How are you, sir? Oh, excuse me. There he is. There.
Been
Now I-
confused
now I
for
see
each other
you.
in the past.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, my name is Sam Rollins. I'm Chief of Communication for Santa Cruz City Schools, and I have been asked to read a statement on behalf of the Greater Santa Cruz Federation of Teachers.
Thank you.
The two co-presidents of the GSCFT are, of course, teaching at the moment and couldn't be here. City Council members and respected community leaders, on behalf of the GSCFT, the Teachers Union for Santa Cruz City Schools, we would like to share our strong support for the proposed educator housing plan. As I'm sure you know, many of our teachers are facing an ongoing challenge in securing affordable housing within our district. This is not just a financial issue, it is a quality of life issue for our teachers, their families, and the students that they serve. When we first polled our membership about the possibility of educator housing, approximately 85% of members voted in favor. Since that time, our workforce has grown younger, and we have more new teachers joining our union each year. We feel that educator housing will be an invaluable resource not only to new teachers, but also veteran teachers who have struggled to find housing in our area. The proposed educator housing plan is an important step toward addressing the challenge by providing teachers with affordable housing options, making it easier for them to live and work in the community they serve. We believe educator housing not only helps stabilize our workforce, but it will also help local educators feel more connected to the families and community they serve. Ensuring that educators have access to affordable housing is an investment in the long-term success of our schools and our students. For all these reasons, we stand in support of the Educator Housing Plan. It is crucial as a step in not only supporting our educators who dedicate their lives to shaping our future, but also in creating a more vibrant and thriving community for all of us. Thank you for your time and consideration, and that is signed Jody Kropholler and Matt Bruner, co-presidents of the GSCFT. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Now, Mr. Kelly, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Also a regularly plaid-wearing, bearded male of the same age. Thank you for having me. I'm Kyle Kelly, Vice President of the Santa Cruz City Schools Board. It is such a pleasure to be here. I'm thankful to city staff, the school board, the school district for supporting this project. I remember when we started on this project, there was an employee of the district who came up to me and asked, can we hurry up? I need this now. This is a couple of years ago. He's still here. I'm thankful, but we're gonna get these shovels ready and then he'll be able to move in with his kid. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service on the school board. Do we have anyone,
We do, yeah.
We do? Let's go to the first person online. Person online, good afternoon. Welcome to the council meeting.
Yeah, hi, this is Garrett. You really snuck the childcare development impact fee by me there as I took a break, but it does impact this item insofar as the exemption that you allowed for it. So if you wouldn't mind, I want to explain in more detail why that's really awful. Okay, and you should not confuse impact with an impact that's already paid for. I impact the roadway driving a car over it, but my impact is already paid for by taxes. And in that case, and also the public safety impact fee, normally after construction, a project pays the full boatload property taxes, occupants pay full sales taxes, etc., all taxes, just like every other residential structure that pays its way for city services. After construction, normally in all cases, it makes no difference if there is a net increase in residents or population. The tax base then also grows automatically with new property taxes and new residents who already pay for their new demands and service, just like everybody else. When a project is under construction then, and it varies by time and size, there are police patrols, fire, costs, and so forth, but the child care impact fee during construction is zero. There are no children there. Okay, so the city's inane fee case argument is essentially that children must live in housing, therefore any building of housing places responsibility for developers to pay for their child care. Nutty, but again, we don't really have to discuss that since no children really live there during construction. It's a shell game of nonsense. Childcare is always the responsibility of parents. However, in this case, you exempt this project from the childcare development fee, and after construction, they don't pay the full freight. It could be 100% no property tax, so they don't pay. And so, if anybody should pay, they should pay. So you have it. Forgive me, back-assward completely. And in the case of normal developments, it's, as I said before, extortion. And then further, let's see. Even if you believe in the socialist, it takes a village to raise a child, and I don't, the entire village should pay, not single out of business. It's just producing a product people want. Anyway, the city's making up claims without merit or common sense and doing so for money using permit leverage. The pros exempt properties won't pay their share of property taxes, even assuming the false connection of building to childcare. They should pay. You have this wrong. And I guess finally I would say, if you could require permit fees for live birth, I have little doubt that you would go there to extract childcare subsidies based on income. And for perspective, that horrible idea makes actually more sense than since parents who have the responsibility would pay. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else online? No. No one else online. Good afternoon. just under the wire.
I know, I'm sorry, I just walked in.
No, it's fine. It's
But I
fine.
wanted to speak in enthusiastic support for this project. You know me as Janine Roth, also a lead with Santa Cruz YIMBY. I do want to speak personally, though, about the support of this project. I was recently talking with a middle schooler who told me that for his classes this year, he has 2 new teachers, brand new, and the oldest tenured teacher he has is from 2020. And it made me think back to when my kids went to Galt Elementary School. I mean, that was eons ago. But there was such a diversity of the teachers. There were those that were brand new and excited, and there were those that had decades of experience and were also excited. And it pains me that there's so much turnover. And I also want to just say that I've been speaking to a lot of people about housing in this community through another initiative that I'm working on. And to a person, when I speak about this project, if they know about it or they don't know about it, they're enthusiastic about it. Anyway, I just wanted to provide that positive support for this project. Thank you all.
Well, thank you very much. Anyone else? Matters back before the body. Pleasure of the body. Councilmember Golder.
I have a motion, and I've sent some additional, so I'd like to move the staff recommendation with some additional language that I've added, and I've sent Bonnie, and I can read that to you, or do you want to wait for it to get up?
So,
My motion is,
Why don't you put this up here so that we're clear on what your motion is? So it is moving the staff recommendation with certain additional items that you're bringing.
and I'll read them and then I'll speak to them.
Please,
But the
thank
first one is, prior to occupancy of the Swift Street project, bring back to the council a modification of chapter 10.46 of the municipal code that provides an exemption to the requirement for the provision of Metro passes for school district projects that enter into a transportation demand management agreement with the city. That's one. And I'll speak to that after I finish reading all 3. The next one is temporary, this is because of a condition added at the Planning Commission meeting on 2/6. Temporary access to Derby Park shall remain open during project construction when feasible and safe. Finally, coordinate with the planning department at the building permit stage to determine whether micro filters can be conveniently incorporated into the washing machine discharge design, taking into account space, maintenance, and other considerations. So
There's
there's a motion.
There's your motion, second by the Vice Mayor. Councilmember Golder, you may open on your motion.
So I will say, like with a lot of things, you've seen me do 180s. This one I initially didn't support when it first came before us in the community. I thought it was not really the school district's business to do housing. I worked in kind of my myopic view at Bayview where there wasn't a lot of staff turnover. Since then, times certainly have changed and there's been a whole lot of turnover at the district level in terms of teachers and support staff. I really see the challenge of being able to recruit and retain difficult positions, food services, transportation, special education teachers and support staff, math teachers and science teachers at the secondary level. And I do see this as a real critical piece to keeping our school district afloat and keeping the kids in our school district getting the best education possible. I really credit the leadership of the superintendent and the assistant superintendents and the school board, including Mary Ann Robb. She was there from the beginning, and I know she supported this project with bringing it to this stage. And so to go back to my first point in regards to the Metro passes, the way the bond was written, no general fund money can be used to support this project. But with a conservative estimate of 175 passes per year at $65 a month with the 20% discount from Metro, that's about $9,100 a month or close to $110,000 a year, plus the cost to oversee distribution of those passes. I know Claire has been working with the district to really create a robust transportation demand management agreement with the city. And this Muni Code was written, I believe, in the 90s when I was doing research with Lee. And so I think if we could come up with some sort of carve out for this project, the cleanest way is to have a change in the Muni code from what I've gathered when working with my council colleagues on bringing this forward. So that's my rationale for that. I'll let anybody else ask any questions of staff if you have any, but that's my rationale. The second one, in terms of access to Derby Park, I know the public has enjoyed the right-of-way of going through there, and there's a planned public right-of-way that's being built into the project for perpetuity. However, we all know construction, it can be messy, it can be dangerous, and there's insurance involved. And I know Jared Bogart is gonna be doing the best he can to keep everybody safe, but I would hate to have that in there as a condition where people can't walk around the block and have something dangerous happen. Finally, while I appreciate my former colleague, Martine Watkins, really looking out for the environment, having done some basic research on this that we put into our objective standards with the microfilter plastics, microplastic filters that are going to be going into washing machines. They're not built into washing machines yet. The technology is not quite there yet. And I could see that it could work in maybe a laundry room with multiple washing machines where someone from the maintenance team is coming and cleaning it out, or if you had it at your home and you were doing it. But I have concerns that the technology isn't quite there yet. And then a thought that I had was, okay, so you have to empty this thing every 10 to 12 washes, wait for the filter to dry out, tap it, put it back, grease the little tube. My thought, and maybe I'm like doom scrolling in my head, but I'm picturing it exploding, flooding, having damage to the people below. It doesn't seem worth it, but I thought instead of coming back for a minor or major modification, put it in now, let the staff and their architects figure it out moving forward, and not let this technical piece jam them up moving forward. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't have to come back before us and delay the project that's obviously a lot of people are counting on to find some affordable homes. All right, there you go.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further debate or discussion on the item? Councilmember Brunner?
Thank you, Councilmember Golder. You brought some points and questions that I had as well, and there definitely is no doubt that it will be such a needed asset in our community, and for retaining our valuable teachers and support staff and workforce in our schools. And, my comment is that as we move forward with housing and state mandates and environmental determinations, I appreciate, the transportation and the environmental intentions here, but I think with these added amendments, that it makes sense for this going forward to have this additional direction here. I thank our school board and administration for taking ownership on helping the community and their workforce in this direction. And I look forward to this project moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Councilmember O'Hara?
Thank you, Mayor. I also am in support of Councilmember Golder's direction on this. Could you bring the motion back up, Bonnie? Thank you. I did just have a couple I had a couple observations and a couple follow-up comments as well. With regard to the first bullets, generally speaking, I think we will see a lot of projects move forward where there's limited funds, limited capacity to meet this particular objective in Municipal Code 10.46. So I wonder, and maybe this is in the form of a question, if in addition to coming forward with the exemption for the Santa Cruz City Schools, if the council would benefit from some additional analysis on that code chapter in general, and if there are additional considerations that we should be taking at this time to be very thoughtful around the diversity of different developers that we will be considering moving forward, that could also have limited, challenges around funding and access to being able to afford such a requirement.
Ms. Galula, good afternoon.
Hi, thank you. That's a great question. I think that's a really good approach to looking at this section of the code. The same concern has been brought up with a variety of different projects, namely 100% affordable housing projects have similar funding constraints, and I think that would be a great thing to work through with the Planning Commission.
Okay. Do you think we would need any additional direction for that first bullet? Okay, so you're comfortable with that. In addition to that, one thing on, I agree with the second bullet. I think that we really do need to give the discretion to the to the developer during construction to ensure that it's safe and feasible for folks to pass by. So I'm in complete agreement with that. The third, this is also just a question. The third, I'm curious if we had, when we move forward with this requirement, thought about different ways to pilot this. I think during building permits, coordinating with the planning department to ensure that we are looking at that space. It seems like it's actually just a fatal flaw from my perspective for most development projects where space becomes very limited, especially in the current density requirements that we are considering with our projects. So I just wonder, again, this might be a question for staff, if it makes sense for us to, in addition to this, really think about a way to pilot this requirement. Because otherwise it does seem like this is, really a fatal flaw at this point. And it's going to be really challenging for most of our new developments to meet this expectation. Don't all come at once.
Mr. Butler, good afternoon. In response to the council member's question.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. Lee Butler, Director of Planning and Community Development. Thanks for that question. The units themselves are relatively small, and there are options to at the construction stage to incorporate that in. It does take some thinking ahead. The design needs to be such that the filter is accessible, as Councilmember Golder was alluding to. With tight spaces, there needs to be access to that filter so that it can be changed on an ongoing basis. In the multifamily where there's a communal laundry room and that's built in, that works just fine. The maintenance crew can address that. We have some provisions in the standard condition that speak to notification to tenants because, as Councilmember Golder was referring to, that maintenance is important. It's like the dryer vent, right? You've got to continue to clean that out, and doing that once every 10 loads can be more forgetful than every load. But we do think that it can be incorporated in, and we've had this condition placed on a few projects. It is a new condition. As Councilmember Golder mentioned, it was in response to some questions that former Councilmember Watkins had raised, and it's consistent with some of our environmental goals of protecting the environment. And so we've got it in there. We haven't had concerns as of yet, but there have only been a few projects that have had that. And we do think that it can be feasible, but also, as the concern was noted here, if there's an issue because of the size constraints and because of an inability to get access to that filter, for example, then with this project, we certainly have the ability to do that. And it's something that we could do for future projects if, if it turns out to be an issue. We've got the building permits coming in for the first one, 850 Almar. Did they submit the building permits yet? Yeah, we do have that first example of how that's being incorporated, but that is a common laundry facility, I believe, correct? So we haven't seen the individual laundry facilities come through. That's certainly something that we'll continue to keep an eye on. And if it becomes an issue, we can do minor modifications and then change the actual condition as well. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Further questions, comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Triguero?
Aye.
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 Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson?
Aye.
Mayor Keeley?
Aye. Motion passes and so ordered. Thank you all very much for your good work. Thank you for being here. We're on item 23. This is the 2025-2030 City of Santa Cruz Local Hazard Mitigation Plan and Climate Adaptation Plan. Dr. Wise West is here to present on this item. Dr. Wise West, thank you to your entire team for your good work and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Tiffany Wisebest, the Sustainability and Resiliency Officer for the city. And I'm here today to share with you our local hazard mitigation and climate adaptation plan for the next 5 years for your consideration for adoption. I want to start by acknowledging that this work has been funded by a hazard mitigation program grant from FEMA. And I want to acknowledge that we have worked with an outstanding team at AECON to assist us with this work, as well as our internal planning team over the last year and a half, almost 2 years, to prepare this document. So first of all, let's see what's going on here. Here we go. What's a hazard mitigation plan? So really this plan identifies hazards, vulnerabilities, and impacts to the community, and I'll kind of detail that a little bit more when I show you some maps. It outlines these long-term strategies to reduce these hazards and the impacts before a disaster occurs, and it must be updated, approved, and adopted every 5 years for communities to receive certain categories of pre- and post-hazard mitigation funding. It must be written to follow FEMA's local mitigation planning policy guide, which you see on the right, which is FEMA's interpretation of the applicable statutes and mitigation planning regulations in the Federal Code of Regulations. The newest guide became available in April of 2023. It has a 6-step planning process and has 34 separate requirements that must be met within the plan and written in a specific way in order for the plan to be approvable by FEMA. It also includes a risk assessment with impacts from each hazard. And I want to mention that this document is written in a very technical kind of way to meet these different requirements. However, we have provided an executive summary that is more accessible, that also has been translated to Spanish. So what is the climate adaptation plan? Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on. Here we go. What's the climate adaptation plan? And that should say adaptation, not adaptation plan. So again, the adaptation plan looks at current and future climate hazards. So not just natural hazards, but hazards that are influenced by climate change that might impact a community. And again, outlines various strategies to address these kinds of hazards. It is also different from the mitigation plan in that there are no state or federal laws that require this process. Rather, we follow state and federal guidance, which you can see the state of California and FEMA issued last year for the first time climate adaptation planning guidance. So this city has a long history of working on natural and climate hazards. In fact, the 2012 climate adaptation plan was the first in the state. We have embarked upon these as separate but parallel processes over time. And so you may ask, why have we for the first time combined these two plan documents together? Well, first of all, it makes a lot of sense because they have a common goal of reducing vulnerabilities and impacts from these hazards. It also allowed us to really streamline what was previously two separate parallel processes into one, which also realized cost savings for the city. It also, very importantly, integrates the two better. And I will mention that during this process, we had an internal planning team that met many times. We had 11 different community partners who also were advising on this plan. Over 500 residents participated in our survey that kicked off this planning process. And we had a number of folks that provided comments during the public review draft of this planning document. I will say that this is the first combined local hazard mitigation plan and climate adaptation plan that has been approved by Cal OES in the state of California and very likely in the United States. So once again, the city is leading in this respect. So the plan itself covers a variety of hazards. I won't read all of them here, but I will note that for the first time, we've brought in extreme heat. And anecdotally, 5 years ago when we had finished our plan and I was talking to our previous emergency operations manager and said, hey, next time do you think maybe we need to think about extreme heat? And he said, you know, Tiffany, before 5 years ago, I would have never thought we had to think about extreme heat here at the city, but now we really do. So we brought that in this year as new. I also want to mention that with respect to flooding, we're really considering here riverine flooding, flash flooding, and coastal flooding that's caused by intense or prolonged rainfall, high tides, storm surge, and localized wave action. So again, a number of hazards here. There are also secondary hazards that occur because of the primary hazard and can have domino effects. And oftentimes these multiple hazards interact together. And so a next step that we will be annexing into this plan that is not required by FEMA, that's why we didn't include it in the core document, is we will be doing an analysis of how those multiple hazards interact together. And I like to use the example of Santa Barbara, which was truly unfortunate that they had a multi-year drought, followed by a fire, followed by a 500-year storm, followed by a landslide. 4 separate hazards together. So again, we can't consider these separately. We need to consider them together, and we'll be doing so. So just moving into a little bit of the findings, I obviously don't expect you all to read this here, but we did expand our definition of critical facilities and infrastructure. You'll see even our park system is included as a critical infrastructure. And what we did then is we characterized not just our critical city facilities, but we mapped and characterized our vulnerabilities with respect to frontline community members, so those who may be vulnerable or marginalized and also subject to hazards, different individual neighborhoods, future growth and development areas, habitats, and other major assets like our schools, affordable housing, libraries, historical buildings, and major recreational facilities. So while I'm going to show you some maps for some of the hazards, some of the key hazards where we really have a lot of potential impacts to our critical facilities, we've done this work for all those different assets as well. So here you will see this is riverine flooding. This is the 1% annual storm, which is a 1 in 100-year chance of a storm. This is defined by FEMA. And why I'm showing this and the next slide is that river flooding and tsunami flooding are the #1 impacts to city critical facilities. So that's why I'm showing it. I will also mention that what FEMA's flood maps don't show is the effect of climate change. They have not yet considered climate change in riverine flooding. And I am thrilled to say that we have a parallel study that's been going on funded by the Department of Water Resources on flood control and climate change that is coming to a conclusion this month. And we will be integrating the findings from that study into our next plan document. Here also you see tsunami. Again, the inundation areas are dark in color. The yellow areas are the city critical facilities. And this is this source is the California Department of Conservation. They do the tsunami mapping for the state and keep that updated. And then I also want to highlight wildfire and future projected coastal storm flooding. Those two hazards represent the next most impactful to our city facilities. So what you see here is future projected coastal storm flooding. We worked on this probably 5 years ago to determine what our impacts might look like over time from coastal flooding, and that's what you see here. Of course, also what I'm not showing is erosion. We do have that mapping, but we know that West Cliff Drive in particular is subject to erosion due to large storm events, west swell conditions, and high tides. So not showing that here today, but wanted to acknowledge that. And then lastly, this is the wildland urban interface. And again, the yellow areas are our city critical facilities, which you can see there are many. I will note also that we've looked at all of these hazards, not only within the city limits, but also water assets that are outside the city limits as well. Okay, moving towards the end here, we do have 27 different mitigation actions. We are required to have at least one mitigation action per hazard. As you can see, we do. Many of our mitigation actions, which I'll show you next, cover different hazards as well, not just one singularly. So there is a lot on the screen here, and I'm not expecting anyone to read it, but suffice it to say there are 27 finalized mitigation actions and adaptation strategies. They were developed in we looked at a lot of different things to develop these strategies. We looked at our prior LHMP and adaptation plan. We looked at our capital investment program. We looked at our climate action plan, which is where resiliency centers and microgrids came in for the first time. There's a nexus there, as well as the Resilient Coast Santa Cruz initiative and all of our coastal work, the 5-year roadmap and so forth. You'll see some of that reflected here. Other plans like the Wharf Master Plan and Engineering Report, the Urban Water Management Plan, the Water Shortage Contingency Plan, the Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan, and other state and federal plans and programs that we brought in, as well as success stories from other jurisdictions and best management practices, as well as community suggestions that we heard during the process. So, to round things out, some next steps that we have, provided we do receive approval today, is that we will file the document with FEMA for final approval. We will complete the multi-hazard analysis over the next several months. We will also begin pursuing funding for mitigation. And again, I want to emphasize that those 27 strategies are meant to be completed within a 5-year time frame. So it needs to be a manageable body of work. We need to have funding for that work. We will also be concurrently implementing mitigation actions for those projects we have funding for, which are listed here. So we already have funding for a number of the actions that are called in the plan. And then we will also embark upon plan maintenance and monitoring. How are we assessing progress each year and reporting to council each year on that progress? And with that, I thank you very much for your time, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have about the hazard mitigation and climate adaptation plan.
Thank you, Dr. Wise-West, and thanks to your staff folks who we see every day, right? Since you and I are right next to each other in terms of offices, I see people just working like busy bees all the time on this. So thank you very much for that very good work. Let me see if there are questions by council members, and we'll start with Councilmember Golder.
Thank you so much. This is really amazing work, and I'm really impressed that you were able to be one of the first in the nation to wrap it all together. I do have just a couple of questions. One is, I didn't see on that one with flooding, I didn't see like the creek at Bethany or some of the Moore Creek or other creeks that are running through, I don't know the names of all of them, but like by Spring Street, that's not a risk, or they don't, those, I just was wondering why?
So I had shown the coastal storm flooding, so it may be that that's more associated with riverine flooding, but we certainly do have that mapped also.
Okay. And then I guess the question or why I was thinking about that is, with this process or with this mapping, how does that relate to one's ability to build or to insure their property? And I don't know if there's conversations, this is probably a bigger can of worms, but with the insurance commissioner and people getting, dropped?
Sure, definitely. So with respect to flooding, FEMA has requirements about if you're within the floodplain that you need to maintain flood insurance. That does not change with this work because we have not changed the FEMA flood maps due to this work. We instead relied on that. In terms of other types of insurance, truly it is somewhat of a black box right now as to how inputs are considered in insurance and when it gets canceled and when it doesn't. I will say that in my community of practice, having this kind of document where you understand your risks, you're working to minimize your risk, certainly puts you in a better position than jurisdictions who do not. With that said, it is not an exact science. It is not transparent how that happens, so I can't answer that with 100% certainty. You're welcome.
Councilmember O'Hara.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much. I agree with Councilmember Golder. It's not surprising that you're number one, that the city is number one. I think this is, typical that you are advancing groundbreaking work. So I really just want to recognize that, you and your team, for that. And your predecessors as well. It's a reflection on not only your engagement and principles around this, but it's a reflection on all of us that we continue to pursue this incredible work. And it also positions the city to be ready to demonstrate our need in the state of an emergency, which we are finding ourselves more and more often in. One thing that could you go back to the next step screen? Yes. Perfect. I'd be very curious, and this is probably a conversation for another time, but the multi-hazard analysis, the example that you use with Santa Barbara is not atypical, right? This is what we are just currently seeing more and more often. It's this similar situation with the LA fires a couple months ago. With most of our recent flooding incidents, it's a combination of dry years followed by very wet springs, followed by king tides that happen at the same time as big rain events. What we saw with the wharf, where we have, huge tidal events and all the other events that we saw with Westcliff Drive. I'd be curious about whether our ongoing efforts, how dynamic will that planning be? Because we can put something down on paper and even conduct this multi-hazard analysis, but the next 5 or 10 years could be very different than what we're even understanding now. And so this is getting to a question. Thank you for your patience. Operationally, what we're talking about with the wharf, for instance, in terms of our operations plans around big tidal events, will part of this hazard mitigation plan be future engagements with council on these kind of dynamic multi-hazard operational considerations? I see that being something that we are going to have to tackle for the next decade, and it's going to be new information year by year in terms of wildfire, flooding, drought combined with extreme rain events, et cetera. So I'd love to hear more thoughts on that.
Definitely. Thank you for that question, Council Member. So one of the things that I didn't mention, getting a little bit into the details of what this analysis will entail, is that similar to the approach we're taking on coastal hazards already, which has been somewhat pioneering, is the use of adaptation pathways or triggers and thresholds. And our plan, our analysis calls for developing an initial set of triggers and thresholds, which obviously will require monitoring as well to see when we approach those triggers and thresholds. The thought is that due to the uncertainty of climate change, we can't say in year 2060 X is going to happen, so we need to do this at this specific time period. Instead, we need to monitor the conditions, agree on what is the risk threshold that the community wants to accept, and when we pass that risk threshold, what are we going to be doing next? So as far as you had asked the question about future engagement with the council on operational considerations, haven't gotten that far yet, but certainly can build that in and report back on that topic. I imagine that the annual update on the status of the plan will not be sufficient time. I could see that being a study session or whatnot over time. I will say that, we do have some experience with riverine flooding in terms of we do have triggers and thresholds specifically for evacuation. And so, we can build upon that with these other hazards, but it is putting together adaptation pathways is iterative in nature, right? It's not a lot of folks have done this, even though it's acknowledged as the smart approach to decision-making. And so it will be an iterative process over time, although we will get started through this multi-hazard analysis.
Just to confirm, the triggers and thresholds are for all the different hazards, not just for the coastal erosion.
They will be, yes. We already have a working set for coastal, but we'll be refining those in some next step coastal projects that are kicking off this year. But this, for the first time, will bring in the other hazards to that type of framework.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Further questions, comments?
Thank
Vice
you.
Mayor is recognized.
Thank you, Dr. Wise-West. I attempted at reading the actual plan, and it is very dense, so I appreciate the executive summary. I appreciate the agenda report and the slides. It makes it really accessible for those of us who don't speak this language every day. I had a similar question as Councilmember O'Hara. What comes to mind is the lighthouse study that we're doing. Is that what it's called? Okay, yeah.
The Lighthouse Hazard Analysis Study.
The Lighthouse Hazard Analysis. So there's that, and there's other analysis that we're constantly doing. So how do they fold together? How do they fit together? And what if we find something in the Lighthouse Hazard Analysis and it's not part of the 27 mitigation strategies we'd identified? Probably is, but what if it's not? How do we bridge those not just the Lighthouse study, but any of these studies that we continue to do with this plan over the next 5 years?
Yes, thank you for that question. I will say that we have spent a good deal of time and attention in aligning across all these different planning processes that are happening concurrently right now and that are unfolding over some time. So for example, you'll see on the coastal side, things that are called out in the 5-year roadmap that you'll be hearing next and that has been in progress for some time. Also integrated into the local coastal program, the New Beaches and Bluffs chapter that's coming. So that alignment is so key so that we don't have conflicts between plans. And, this is a 5-year plan. It is adaptable. We can bring in, and we don't have to go to FEMA, we can bring in new information. For example, we did that last year, I believe we brought in the the West Cliff Vision as an annex into that plan. So we can do that. That is not a problem. And then it can also be integrated into subsequent versions of this plan. Again, this is a 5-year time horizon. So the plan alignment's so critical, and we can adapt over time.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Further questions, comments? This will be the opportunity for the public to comment on this item. Anyone with us in chambers today wish to make comment on the item? Do we have anyone online, Ms. Bush, with their hand up? We'll go to the person online. Good afternoon and welcome.
Okay, this is Garrett. You've heard this all before, but I'll do it anyway. There are several problems with the hazard mitigation plan as presented. For starters, it assumes some scenarios based more so on paid-for political science and ignores the totality of consequences of actions based on these. Of course, some careful, all factors with proper weighted consideration of adaptation to environmental change or climate change is the appropriate response to any actual, real, existential threat to the human condition if it really exists. But this is largely globalist claptrap, not an immediate existential threat. Anyway, FEMA may not even exist soon, having been shown to be corrupt. Yes, the Earth is overall warming a little as it has for all of this current interglacial period, as it has in the past, but man's role in this is the subject of controversy. Again, not science, but rather political science along the lines of a new world order controlled by globalists using fear-mongering and useful idiots to achieve their goals of world domination and profit. Sea level rise has been fear-mongered for at least 25 years, and the Arctic was supposed to have been totally melted by 2013, according to Al Gore in 2000, but actually the ice coverage is greater there today than it was in 2013. Al Gore's fear-mongering grift sadly has paid him well and little else. You seem to identify a great many vulnerable structures and utilities, assuming your sea level rise fear-mongering estimates, but also to abandon some in this managed retreat where you basically wish to do near nothing unless someone else pays, for instance, to fill sea caves and refuse to use better hard armoring. Private property is then expendable. You do not wish to defend against nature's laws of entropy, preferring instead that nature take its course, thinking humans are being immoral to interfere, perhaps the earth better if they didn't even exist. There's plenty of nature out there in the world. This is a city of people, but no one would know it from these documents. I do not want to hear about aggressively reducing greenhouse gases like CO2, a plant food, essential factor of life at any cost. You are not paying attention to current events. The people have spoken, most of the world doesn't agree, and efforts to reduce CO2 at any cost are no longer acceptable world majority view, but California and Santa Cruz haven't figured it out yet. Very soon, the counter-revolution rejecting the anti-science of, say, COVID or climate change or any of the other globalist power conspiracies will be exposed more, and then the people will reject them as they have already started to do. And then Santa Cruz will be a shrinking puddle of blue blob goo, and the last to figure it out and probably suffer more so along the way. And please don't confuse weather with climate, and as you're taking all these measurements, lots of weather have extreme events, but that doesn't make it a trend, and it doesn't mean that it'll happen again. The trends, it takes a long time to really establish a climate trend. So you could do the wrong thing based on a single.
Further on this item? Matter is back before the body. Pleasure of the body. Councilmember O'Hara.
I'd like to move staff recommendation.
There is a motion.
I'll second.
Second by the Vice Mayor. You may open on your motion.
No further comments?
Further question or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Triguero.
Aye.
Brunner.
Aye.
Newsom.
Aye.
Holder.
Aye.
O'Hara. Aye. Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Keeley.
Aye. Motion passes and so ordered. Thank you for your good work. We are now on item 24, proposed 5-year roadmap for West Cliff. Assistant City Manager Templeton will be providing a staff report on this item. Madam Assistant City Manager, good afternoon.
Afternoon. Bear with me as I haven't used this before, so can you hear me okay? All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Michelle Templeton, Assistant City Manager, and I'm here with you this afternoon to present the 5-year roadmap for West Cliff for your consideration and review. The 5-year roadmap before you today has been the result of a tremendous collaboration community-wide, and I'd be remiss if I didn't begin by saying that while I'm bringing this to the finish line for your consideration today, there have been dozens of dedicated city staff, hundreds of community members, our West Cliff Implementation Committee, and our great consultant team that have all put in so much time, and we need to recognize that hard work today as well. So with that, today we're going to discuss the background for the roadmap, the development process, the community engagement and feedback that we conducted over the last 6 to 8 months, the proposed projects in the roadmap, and some existing West Cliff projects underway, just to give a heads up to the community about what's going on out there now. And then we'll discuss next steps and any questions you might have. So before we dive into the 5-year roadmap, I'd like to quickly review some of the background that brought us here today. What is the 50-year community vision for West Cliff? So because of the damaging storms of 2023, the city came together and the council adopted a 50-year community vision in April of 2024, about a year ago. And this acts as a shared expression of our community values and aspirations for the future of West Cliff in the next 50 years. This vision was developed with input from our residents, our stakeholders, and local experts, and is a long-term guide for planning and decision-making as we implement projects along West Cliff into the future. And as a reminder, all the community meetings that were held for the 50-year community vision are available online if folks want to learn more about that vision. So as we get into the proposed projects and the roadmap, it's important that we understand the relationship it has to the vision. The vision identifies 10 pillars listed here that were developed in collaboration with the community and are referenced in each of the five-year roadmap projects to clearly highlight the nexus between the 5-year roadmap and that community vision. So following the adoption of the 50-year vision in April of last year, the city began engaging community in conversations around creating a roadmap together to provide a structured approach to kicking off that 50-year vision. The roadmap identifies projects that will advance the vision between 2025 and 2030, and they're outlined actionable steps that we are for short-term and near-term projects that'll help us advance the long-term vision for West Cliff overall. The projects being considered under the 5-year roadmap are focused on the overall enhancement, resilience, and safety of West Cliff, and they support the city's implementation of adaptive coastal management and an alignment of projects across our city planning documents. So let's get into the roadmap development process a little. Busy slide, but there was a lot going on, and it all kicked off with in September of 2024, we kicked off the implementation of the West Cliff Implementation Committee, the WCIC, and that was followed by our first community conversation. And this is the cadence that continued, a West Cliff Implementation Committee meeting, lots of feedback, working sessions, followed by community conversations, information sessions, all the way up until this February of 2025. And the development of the 5 proposed projects in the roadmap today went through several stages of review, analysis, community feedback, and consolidation to get to a final roadmap that really balanced the community's vision with the need to continue to be responsive to the ever-growing changes along West Cliff due to storm events and changing conditions. So we started with an initial list, and I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get into the projects. But we started with an initial list of about 82 activities and projects, and we pulled those from all the city plans that we had, and then pulled out anything that didn't include West Cliff, consolidated projects that were smaller, lumped them into larger groups, and then brought that list back to the community for prioritization and ranking. That community prioritization and ranking was brought back to the West Cliff Implementation Committee for discussion and feedback, and then we brought that back to the community. And I'll share a little bit more about that when we get into our outreach process. So you've heard me say that it was a community collaboration, and we'll get into exactly what that means. The first community conversation was September 26th, and it was really the refinement of project prioritization to start off with. There was a lot of public feedback. It was very helpful to hear what the public thought about how we were presenting the materials. A lot of this work is very technical in nature, and so making it digestible for the community so that they can provide feedback in meaningful ways. On October 21st, we held a community conversation in the form of a workshop at London Nelson Center, where the community was able to come out and do project ranking and prioritization. And there was both an in-person component and it extended for a week online for those that weren't able to attend the meeting. We got very valuable feedback that helped us bring that large list down to a reasonable size to bring back to the West Cliff Implementation Committee, and then continue to share that information from that prioritization with the West Cliff Implementation Committee to develop a draft roadmap that went back out to the public on December 18th of 2024 and was open through January 26th of this year. We wanted a large open period because it is a complex document, and we had some great feedback that helped guide us in cleaning that piece up, bringing it back to the West Cliff Implementation Committee for the document that you see before you today. So let's get into the projects themselves. There are 5 proposed projects, and you'll notice here in this table that we have them highlighted by the department that is responsible for them, as well as their nexus to the 50-year vision, which was very important for the community to have established. So the revetment repair project is under Public Works, as well as the Lighthouse Field roadway relocation project. And then under the city manager's office, we have the Santa Cruz Coastal.
For just a second, do you want to move to another slide here?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, so the first one, revetment repair, and second, Lighthouse Field roadway relocation are both Public Works projects. Santa Cruz Coastal Change Monitoring Program and the West Cliff Infrastructure Financing Feasibility Study would be led by the city manager's office. And then the corridor-wide master signage plan and design standards is under Parks and Recreation. And you'll see that they each have, again, their nexus to the 50-year vision. And all of these projects are outlined in detail in the attachment of the roadmap. We also have a quick guide for the community that's attached to this agenda item, if that's of interest. So one of the things that we've been asked a lot by the community is how are we going to know what's going on as the roadmap moves forward if adopted today? What we're looking at with the 5-year roadmap progress updates is to continue the communication with our community on this well-loved resource that is West Cliff. And it would include individual 5-year roadmap projects being brought before City Council, as would most projects. The city newsletter would include updates on the roadmap projects, as well as other projects outside of the roadmap. It's really important to note that the 5 projects in the 5-year roadmap are not the only projects that will be going on West Cliff. There's a lot of other things. This is just a very focused approach to kicking off the vision. And then also email subscription lists. We encourage people to sign up for our email subscriptions, and we'll be sending out social media posts as projects continue. If there's opportunities for community feedback, we'll continue to share that on our typical platforms, and then media releases regarding milestones on many of these projects. And along these same lines, part of the information sharing throughout this process has been to highlight all of those existing projects, which are many, going on along West Cliff that are already underway outside of the roadmap. Some of them which have been recently completed or are close to completion, and others will overlap with the projects in the 5-year roadmap. So we have 2 slides worth of these. We've got the Bethany Curve Culvert Project, West Cliff storm damages and infrastructure repair, the West Cliff multi-use path rehabilitation project, the Lighthouse Point hazard and engineering analysis. And then we get into living shorelines, nature-based solutions, and sand management feasibility study, the local hazard mitigation plan and climate adaptation plan integration and update, and the local coastal program update, which you'll be seeing more of. The city, the West Cliff, East Cliff, and Maine and Cal Beaches shoreline adaptation implementation blueprints. So these are some of the big projects that are already underway. There's more details on those projects in the attachments of the roadmap itself. So people can learn more about that in the roadmap. And then part of that information sharing throughout this process has been, to highlight all of this with the community. We will continue to do so. And as far as next steps are concerned, we're looking at advancing the 5-year roadmap to be able to establish these prioritized projects that align with the vision and make progress on existing and prioritized projects along West Cliff, like those that you just heard about in the last couple slides. Being able to integrate priority West Cliff projects into citywide capital investment program. And so really looking at, West Cliff is one of the areas that we're managing through our CIP program, and folding West Cliff into that prioritization will also support the integration of these projects. Updating the 50-year vision concurrently with the city's next LCP, Local Coastal Program update, and continuing to engage stakeholders and regulators to advance the 5 prioritized projects. So with that, it's staff recommendation to receive comments on and adopt the 5-year roadmap for West Cliff. And today we have our consultant online available from Fairlawn Strategies, Jen McKenzie. We also have our team available for any questions the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the thorough presentation, all the good work that you and the consultants and city staff are all doing, and public participation as well. Thank you very much for that. Let me see if there are questions, comments from council members. Councilmember Golder.
I just have a comment. I just wanted to thank staff, thank the outside partners, and thank the community for just their robust conversations and thoughtfulness going into this process. Council, Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson and I have spent 2.5 years pretty much working on this, I'd say multiple times a week in some capacity. And so I know that Westcliff Drive is a beloved jewel in this community and around the world. And so taking the time to thoughtfully plan and make preparations for what is to come ahead, knowing that everything will change, is still a big feat. And so I really appreciate the amount of energy that went into this, and to the community members that came out and supported us throughout the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further questions, comments? Madam Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to also comment and thank you, Michelle, and thank the whole city team. I know you already thanked the Westcliff Implementation Committee, but I want to give a shout out. That was a really incredible process to have the various voices around the table, and for them to represent the groups that they were representing, have that at the table. I thought that was a really great process. You know, we went from a pretty charged, divisive conversation in the community to still not everyone's completely on the same page, but much more cohesive and a lot of more alignment. So, you know, I think it shows in the projects, when you look at the projects for the next 5 years and the existing projects, all of the pillars from the 50-year vision are represented somewhere in those projects. So, thank you for all the work. Thank you to the community members for your level of engagement. And it's an invitation to continue to engage with us, because as Councilmember Golder said, the work's going to continue. The work's really like beginning, right? So thank you all.
Councilmember O'Hara.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate it. That was a really great presentation, and also I really appreciated the comprehensive nature of the staff report. So thank you for putting that together. Actually, somewhat of a parallel consideration that's in my mind, and it's apropos that Mr. Stoner just walked in the room. Question about how we are engaging with the community, specifically around the preservation of our world-class surf breaks. When we think about our coastal infrastructure, particularly access to Westcliff, the way I see it is we have this very critical role in ensuring that we have continued accessibility, continued stabilization of the cliffs, et cetera. But quite frankly, that really intersects a lot with the impacts to our surf breaks that, you know, are dynamic and changing. As we saw with the event with the wharf, I don't think I've ever seen as many surfers out in front of Mitchell's all the way up to Natural Bridges. So I guess the question embedded in these comments are, how are we engaging on that parallel but very connected set of questions, and in particular, who are we engaging with, whether it be Save the Waves or other organizations, to make sure that as we are considering stabilizing our shoreline, that we're thinking about that within the context of ensuring that those breaks remain as viable and sustainable as possible.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Councilmember O'Hara. The engagement with the surfing community has been very robust. And in fact, we were looking back through, and most of the engagement work we've done dating back past 2017 has included surfers in all of the efforts that Dr. Wise West has done, that we've done through Westcliff. Our Westcliff Implementation Committee had 3 representatives that were from the surfing community. And we've continued to have dialogues with community members. We appreciate them coming out. We appreciate them coming to our community meetings and listening to that voice, because it is a very unique resource and jewel that we have in Santa Cruz. And so those conversations have continued. We have representation on committees, commissions, conversations that we're having related to all of our coastal resources around surfing. So I very much appreciate that question, and that is going to remain. We're committed to that conversation staying strong with our surfing community.
Further questions or comments? Councilmember Brunner.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for all the work that has been done by everyone who's worked on this project, including the 2 council members that have been to more meetings than some of us have. But being, on this council for the last couple of years as this work has progressed, and hearing from many of the residents and community members here in Santa Cruz regarding this plan, this vision, I really want to say that it's come a long way. It was a hard start, and I appreciate the outline of what it took to get to this point. And I appreciate the community's patience as we all work together, but I think this plan really does a good job accommodating our dynamic coast and implementing the community's priorities in and identifying steps. And I really think that it was important that it was added in that even with emergency, disaster, anything that happens, that, the priorities might take a back. I forget how it was in the plan, but that the identified priorities might take a back step if there's an emergency. So I think that was important to lay out in the plan so that shared understanding is there. So thank you, everybody, for this work thus far, and I know it will continue.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further questions from council members? This would be the opportunity for anyone who is with us today to comment on this item. We'll take folks who are with us in the chambers. If there are folks online, we'll toggle back and forth between folks here in the chambers and folks online. Ms. Bush, do we have anyone online?
We do.
Okay, so what we'll do is hear from Mr. Stoner first. Mr. Stoner, thank you for being here, and thank you for all your good work with the surf community.
Thank you, council members and support staff. I just want to comment more on the cave issue at Lighthouse Point. Right now you have 2 existing caves. The one on the Steamer Lane side, riprap was put in there in '86, and that's held up pretty well. On the It Beach side, there's been nothing done to that one. I have a photo of it from 1989, deep inside, and it's doubled in depth. There's a gap right now to where at some point those 2 caves are going to connect. When they do, they're going to collapse. 3 things are going to happen. Number 1, you're going to have a giant seal rock. Number 2, the Surf Museum is going to be on the very edge of the cliff, compromised. And number 3, once those 2 caves connect, you're going to have water coming through the It Beach side on each wave cycle, swirling around, and it's going to compromise point surf break and slot point break. We don't know how that's going to work depending on the swell direction, but it's going to compromise the surf break. So in reality, you're losing a function of a free public resource if you don't do something with that. I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, Mr. Stoner. Anyone else who's with us in chambers? We'll take the person online. Person online, good afternoon and welcome.
Yeah, hi, this is Garrett again. This is an example of both the worst and the best of what city governments do. It is an example of never let a crisis go to waste, where cliff erosion has finally gotten to the crisis point where it cannot be ignored. And then the city made controversial decisions way beyond erosion control that had strong West Cliff resident opposition, but also the support of a few less Cliff local activist user groups like bikers and tourist walkers. Finding this opposition, the city embarked using plenty of public money, and you still are, to hire mass persuasion consultants to conduct, I'd say, sham consensus building, consensus directed to arrive along your views of these tightly manipulated public so-called outreach meetings of essentially activist groups and hand-picked city focus groups, not really the public, to put a rubber stamp on the city's intentions to persuade and make it appear as consensus, but really these tightly directed meetings make a pretense that they were somehow the public's idea or to change public opinion. I doubt public opinion has changed that much. I regard those meetings as using the people's money against them as mind-controlled mass persuasions. None of these plan ideas are really grassroots. They are your plans, such as one-way or one-way studies or Green New Deal nods to nature-based solutions, where there really are none that will ever function there, to apply to Westcliff over proven engineered solutions to protect private and public property for as long as possible. Instead, you favor the far cheaper managed retreat and a blind thinking along totalitarian or socialist lines that, taking away from some, have and paid for and giving it over to others of their demands to obtain more privilege for themselves. Somehow that's a positive outcome, which it doesn't. Math is not your strong suit. Mass persuasion on the public dime is. I sympathize and agree it's cheaper for you and non-cliff dwelling others to let property fall into the ocean. It is fact everyone can and does use Westcliff right now in both directions, and bikes in particular can use it everything, roadway and path. You express you don't like cars, although they do represent freedom. You fearmonger climate change, and yes, eventually nature and entropy will erase Westcliff, but that doesn't have to be anytime soon. While I'm not a sand scientist, I'm pretty sure most of the beach sand comes from, not from the cliffs. It mostly comes from the streams and the rivers. It's no coincidence big beaches are at or near where streams and rivers are, and they move by sea currents. We won't lose our beaches with hard armoring, as is fear-mongered, although that might occur in other places without local rivers. No, not filling the sea caves as a priority just tells me it's all about sacrificing private property unless other people's money can be found. It's a city, not a non-people nature preserve, but people are part of nature. I do like moving the roadway back a little from the cliffs where possible, but I don't like the not considering better solutions. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else who's with us today wish to make comment on this agenda item? Seeing and hearing none, the matter is back before the body. Pleasure of the body. Councilmember Golder.
I'd like to move the staff recommendation.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Second by by the Vice Mayor. Councilmember Golder, you may open on your motion.
I've said almost everything that I've had to say. I do want to really acknowledge and thank the members of the community, Don Iglesias, Kathy Stefanke, Kim Stoner that are here, and anyone else that might be listening online that were super respectful and engaged with staff and worked hard to come to where we are today. So thank you, and I'm happy to move the item.
Thank you. Is there further debate or discussion? Councilmember Brunner.
I just had a question regarding the sea caves, and if anybody can give any kind of update about that and where that is. And I'm sure it was discussed in the group and considered among priorities. So I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We'll bring up our Public Works Director.
Mr. Nguyen, good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members. Nathan Lynn, Director of Public Works. So the City of Santa Cruz is in the process of acquiring a consultant to perform the Lighthouse Hazard Study Analysis. We're waiting to see what the results of that analysis will be and really to inform us to another decision point about what we would like to do along that site. And so it is in process, and we are actively working on that.
Further questions, comments, further debate or discussion? The Vice Mayor is recognized.
I'll just follow up with, can you share the timeline of that Lighthouse hazard analysis?
I think right now we're tentatively looking at getting a consultant on board by this summer. We've been engaging with a couple different consulting firms at this point, but are still struggling on the scope and cost. And so we have identified available funding for the work, and so we've moved at least past that point. But procuring the consultant is currently where we're at.
Mr. Nguyen, thank you on that. In the general topic of, oh my goodness, that was raised by Mr. Stoner, the way he characterized what that issue is underneath the lighthouse point. Are you able to tell us today, public, you can still be out there, you can still walk around there, the lighthouse is not falling into the ocean any day soon? Give us some sense, because the public has now heard that there are 2 caves under there, one of them's getting bigger, and we're hiring an analyst to take a look at that. So what can you say to the public as to whether or not it is safe to be there today?
Yeah, I believe at this point in time, we believe it's safe to actively be on the cliff and along the water, surfing the break at Steamer's Lane. We are aware of the 2 caves that are forming both on the inland and outland side that Mr. Stoner presented earlier today. And as the Lighthouse Hazard Analysis Study will do, is to take additional data to really inform us about how to mitigate that, those erosion that is currently happening out there.
And would we all be right in assuming that should there be a change in circumstances, whether that's tomorrow morning or 6 months from now, you would take appropriate action to protect the public? Is that right?
That's correct. Similar to the disasters or failures that occurred over the past 18 to 24 months along West Cliff, we would immediately post signage and put stuff on social media with regards to failures that occur along the coastline.
Very good. Thank you very much. Councilmember Golder.
I also have just one comment aside to that. If you're going above the cave, you're already climbing over where you're supposed to be, so you're entering at your own risk.
Yes, the assistant city manager is recognized.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify too that the project that Nathan and community member Mr. Stoner are talking about, those are identified in the roadmap. You can see them in our project timeline. So it is not one of the 5 roadmap projects because it is already an existing project underway. So it's something that's very much on our radar, so much so that it's a priority even before the adoption of this roadmap if you choose to do so today.
Thank you. Councilmember O'Hara.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Michelle. That was a comment that I wanted to make sure that we were all very much aware of. I think as it relates to my previous comments, sometimes the prioritization between preserving a surf break and considering that type of investment might be actually in conflict with accessibility and other considerations. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we were really clear on, is that ensuring that we're ensuring that those considerations are brought into the fold. I don't think it's possible for them to not be, because our surfing community is very vocal and very powerful. But that being said, I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that that project is already underway. And, I think I can speak for myself, is an area that I think we should continue to talk about, given the fact of how important that particular aspect of West Cliff is for not only, our surfing community, but the greater population that lives around and enjoys our amazing community. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Triguero.
Aye.
Brunner.
Aye.
Newsom.
Aye.
Golder. O'Hara.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Kalantari Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Keeley.
Aye. Motion passes and so ordered. Thank all of you who've been working so diligently on this. Mr. City Attorney, further business come before the body.
We have none.
Madam Clerk, further business come before the body.
Nothing from me, no.
Councilmember Golder, with great reluctance, moves adjournment. And let me see, Councilmember Newsom is equally as reluctant to adjourn, but will do it in the interest of the body. Motion and a second. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Carries. We stand adjourned. Thank you. She said.